Okay, I would like to call to order the board workshop meeting. I'll start off. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I will entertain a motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Stout?
Yes.
Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Dr. Stricker?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Okay, we are recessed into executive session.
Session. I apologize for the brief delay. At this time, will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, we already did.
Oh, you already did Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, all right then. Never mind.
Yeah, we got it.
No,
we got
that
it
was for
again.
separate minutes.
You got a different one? Okay, let's do it again. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Did you do it earlier?
We did.
Oh. All right, at this time we have our first opportunity for public comments. The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and the school district in which you reside. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this time? All right, Patrick.
Hi, my name is Patrick Lee. I live at 429 Greeley Avenue and I reside in the Webster Grove School District. So my fellow students and myself are here today as members of Webster Grove's Climate Action, a group of concerned high school students looking to address the urgent reality of climate change. We would first like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Simpson for graciously receiving our request last Friday during the Global Climate Strike walkout and opening a dialogue with us to help work towards our goals of making Webster a greener school and district. Not all students have such receptive and respectful administrators, and we are very lucky to have such great ones. Secondly, we would like to communicate to all board members and district staff that we are invested in the process that will result in the coming months and possibly years, and that the walkout that occurred last Friday is only the beginning of our efforts. We look forward to much cooperation and teamwork to ensure that the legacy our district is leaving behind is one that contains proper environmental stewardship. After all, the urgent reality we are faced with demands that we take proper steps to address it, in order for children in our schools to be preparing for a future that they will have, not for a future that they may have, instead of passively waiting for the rest of the world to act accordingly. So I'd like to thank you all for your time, and this will certainly not be the last time you hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Don't be shy.
All right. I would like to again thank all the school board for welcoming us.
Do you want to start with your name?
Oh, yeah.
Address?
My name is Matthew Curtis. I reside at 663 Tuxedos, and I'm part of the Webster Grove School District. And I'll again like to thank all the school board for welcoming us. And I think that like opportunities to really connect with the school board can really help drive the future of our school, because I think different viewpoints are really important in really making sure what we're doing at Webster is the best. And I think the walk for the climate, that was really what put us on the map. And now we are proving that we're serious about climate change. We've seen all the science. There's many scientific studies out there that show the danger of what's going to happen and how serious of an issue it is. And we know that while each of us individually can do as much as we can. We really can't solve the issue by ourselves. But what we can do is we can raise awareness and really push people like the school board to make actions for the whole school. And I would like to use this opportunity to really ask for more opportunities like this, and for us to really appreciate this opportunity. So I'd like to thank you again and hope that we can communicate more.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right, going once, going twice. Okay, your correspondence log has been updated. Take a look at that when you get an opportunity. And next we have reports from superintendent and staff, Prop E construction update. Ms. Pam Frazier and Mr. Rob Studer.
I'm just going to do a quick introduction. Mr. Rob Stuber, as you just mentioned, is here along with the architectural firms of UHA and Honer Associates. And they're here this evening to give progress updates on the projects they're working on. DHA has been working on the Hickson project, and Honer Associates is working on the security projects.
Whichever one you want. Oh, well. You want me to go first? You want to go first? Tell you what, let me go first because I don't want to follow the fix. Well, thank you very much for opportunity to be here to present. Myself, Mark Ruther with Honer Associates. Matt McDermott is with me here in the audience as well, and he's been instrumental in working through the details on the project. Is the I'll go ahead and basically what you're going to see is we're involved with the package 2, which is the security, safety, and accessibility improvements, and this, as Pam had said, this is just a flyover about 30,000 feet, just to kind of give you a very quick update on what we've been working on for the past couple of months. And here's the package. Okay. So, very quickly, I just want to go through again safety, security, accessibility at 8 campuses. So, we've 8 campuses: Avery, Bristol, Clark, Dager, Edgar, Hudson, Walter Ambrose, Webster Groves High School. What I really kind of want to talk about tonight is the process that we've been kind of going through as we go through each one of those campuses. You can kind of think of the challenges at each one of those campuses when you really enter it to think how we're going to get accessibility, safety and security, and a single point access to each one of those campuses. So what we've done, the process that we kind of went through is the field work. We went out and walked each one of the campuses, did field work, and developed concepts based on our survey of each one of the campuses, and came up with these concepts and of each one of those campuses, depending upon accessibility, the security, or what have you. Came back and we met with the owner, that being Rob, and we had a significant amount of meetings to basically look through each one of those, the concepts and the plans to address each one of those needs at each one of the campuses. After that, we went back, took some of those and refined them, and then again went back and with the second round of refinement, and then took them to the school, the users, each one of the campuses, and basically got their input on the offices and the single point entrance, and then also the elevator locations. From there, we got approval move ahead. But a couple of things that I wanted, as we went through that process, it was really 3 steps. First was the elevators, and then the single point entry, along with the windows and the doors at each one of those campuses. We really looked at it very carefully and really came down to the elevators were really going to be the most critical aspect of, one, because it's the biggest, it's connecting all the floors, putting it in the right location so that we're getting the most comprehensive use of that elevator at a single point. Then after that, in some of those locations, as you'll see, I just got 3 examples to kind of show how we went through that. But then from there, we went to the single point entrance, and then got those concepts pretty much nailed down, and now we're going to go back and start looking at the doors, the windows, and security at each one of those entrances, the first floor, second floor, as we get into looking at the cost effectiveness of each one of those layouts. So I'm going to go through very quickly. Bristol Elementary is one of the schools that we have an elevator location. So if you look at the main entrance off of Gray Avenue, we looked at multiple, I want to say there were probably 6 different locations. We looked at placement of an elevator. We determined the back on the east side, southeast corner, when you come through the drive back to the parking lot. It was the best, most reasonable place to put the elevator because it ties the three floors together. It was accessible for easy access and parking to the location. So you can see on the main entrance, the elevator will be in the back. It provides the parking as well. And then along with, we've got the, when you look at the floor plan to the right on the lower level elevation, it's basically the lower elevation of the lobby. You come into an elevator, go down to the cafeteria, which will also have a low wall just to kind of separate that access into the remainder of the school. We will be looking at some alternates as we go through the process, and there is a possibility of looking at an alternate to tie that elevator lobby back to the entrance to the gymnasium there. Next school we looked at was Clark Elementary, and this was really more of a site concern and how we got from the parking from the west to the east. You got Big Bend to the north there, and basically was getting a sidewalk around to the existing entrance and renovating the tan area, which is basically roughly 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. That would be renovating a new main entrance that you would come in. There's a hardened area and a set of doors to stop anyone from coming in. They'll have an access window where the blue dash lines are for access. You can have a pass-through window to the general office. The general office set is also open to the remainder of the building. They've got a principal renovated space along with the nurse and a 88 toilet. And the final example I was going to use is Hudson Elementary School, which you got Hudson to the south, and then the main entrance where we've got the main entry going right into the front entrance, where we over onto the north you can see where there's no work. Originally that's where the existing offices were. They were going to move to the south. So now the tan area is the area that's going to have a hardened front end, along with an accessible ramp to come up to a landing, go in. Again, the blue dash lines there is the lobby to prevent any access going into the remainder of the building with a hardened area. Pass-through window into the tan area where we have 2 offices renovated, a principal office, a small conference room, and then a waiting area from the main portion of the building. This is one area that I just kind of wanted to bring to your attention. As we went through these meetings, it was the staff really helped out here because when we were looking at originally, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner there, is the entire scope was to renovate the tan area or the office area where there's a classroom, along with the offices where the offices were, to convert that into classrooms. As we got into it, the staff realized, well, why don't we leave those offices and move some of the staff classrooms from down on the west side, move those in where we need those separate offices for special needs, likewise being able to eliminate some of the office area for renovation. So we're looking for every little dollar we can to be able to make our dollars go as far as we can into the project. So this was just an overview of those 3 projects. Do you have any questions about anything? Be happy to answer.
Are these all of the modifications that you have planned for these particular buildings, or are they kind of still in progress?
They're still in progress.
Okay.
Right now we've gone through, we feel like we've got some pretty good direction as far as the elevators and the single point access, but we're still tweaking. We will now get our engineers and ourselves getting into more field work to be able to clarify some of the details. So.
In the Bristol example, is the, and this may be, Dr. Simpson, you could answer that, so that when school has started, parents and anybody else will have to enter via the new vestibule area and then walk to the office, or is the office being relocated closer to that vestibule area?
That was one of the Bristol and Avery are the tough ones, because one of the things that we have to do is the plans aren't to relocate the entire office there, but how do we create a secure, safe space there for somebody to check in people that come into that space, because that's going to be a priority. So I know that was something that everyone was still trying to figure out, how at Bristol and Avery do we do that without fully relocating those offices. Yeah.
All right, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Just want to make it known that Dr. Lee's here for the next one. If anybody wants to ask, she's kind of back there, she's kind of hidden. But if anybody has any questions for her too.
I know she appreciated that.
I told her at least maybe she gets out of bedtime.
Are you mad at her
Having
for
children of
something?
similar ages. Maybe if you, right.
Good evening. My name is Don Hussman. I'm a principal with Dickinson Hussman Architects. With me this evening is my business partner, Dwight Dickinson. And I was also going to mention that Dr. Lee is with us this evening, just in case I needed to lead on a little bit about some of the information at Hickson. Like Mark, we also began working on the Hickson project almost immediately after the bond issue. And I kind of brought something this evening. I know you all are familiar with the cooperative strategies, recommendations and such. And really, they were the forerunner of beginning to work on Hickson and the type of improvements that we're planning to do. Hickson is, and I'll just go back a little bit in history for some of you because you may or may not know it. I wasn't familiar that the school was as old as it is. It was designed in 1954 and constructed in 1955 and 56. My partner remembered going to one of the, was it a wrestling tournament or something? Football there. Okay, so he's the only living person I know who knew about the building in the mid 50s. But I was surprised. I thought actually it was a much newer school. It was originally designed as a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade junior high. other information that I thought was helpful, because clearly it is established as a middle school or as a junior high would have been, to where it's easily compartmentalized. And so for us to transition a third grade back into that facility, I won't say it's easy, because it's very tight on the site. It's my understanding that there are about 12 available acres, and of that acreage, I'm going to use the pointer. I don't know if this will show up on there. I guess it does not, or maybe my pointer is not working here. I mean, it helps if you turn it on. Yeah, right in this zone, I'm not sure if you're familiar or not, but the city of Webster Groves actually owns a parcel of ground here. So immediately what we found with Hickson is there were not a lot of opportunities to expand the building. And as you can see, the area shown in gray is essentially pretty much the building as it was designed and constructed in the mid-50s. And then the areas in gold are the additions. Another thing that complicates this project is that there are actually 5 building additions that will be added to this facility in order to incorporate the 6th grade, so that we actually have the 3 grade levels, 6, 7, and 8 at the building. So while one might think that if your options are not so open, that it's a little bit easier to design, but in this particular case, we actually started with a design that looked much different than this, and working with Rob Stuber and the administrators and Dr. Lee, I think we really began to make some pretty substantial changes. One of the most significant or important changes to this building is, I believe you all know where the current main entry is right here, that faces essentially Interstate 44, and that worked fine before the interstate was there. But now I know a lot of visitors coming up to the building are questioning, well, where is the main entrance? And it's for those of us who live here and know the building, it's pretty easy to say, well, it's obviously where the canopy comes out. But for first-time visitors and such, it really was one of the things that was immediately questioned. I'm going to point to a few things, and we'll pretty quickly move off of the site plan in a moment. But one of the major things that we learned very quickly in probably our second or third design iteration is that the entry probably does not make sense where it currently exists. And there was a lot of suggestions and recommendations to move it essentially right here where my pointer is, so that as we're heading both north and south on Elm, that it's pretty easily identified. With the change of entry also changes the vehicular circulation on the site. And while I have not been there early in the morning, I do understand, and Dr. Lee, I know you've mentioned it to us several times, about the congestion that's on the site. One of the great things about Hickson is it's really a walkable school. Not many of our commissions are like that. Most children are coming either by bus or by mom and dad drop-off, but you have a lot of students that are walking to this school. I think that that's a great thing, but it also complicates the vehicular traffic flow in that we have to make certain that everyone arriving at Hickson is arriving in a safe and secure manner. So there has been a little bit of a change in what we're proposing. Now, the parking lots in the vehicular configuration probably to you might look pretty much the same as they currently exist. But if you notice down south of the main entry, the parking actually, this is all new parking and an all new circulation drive. And the intent of that is for parents to use this as staging areas, both, that's Ambrose Way. Sometimes I don't recall, is that right? Am I saying that right? Is it Ambrose? Okay. As well as using Elm to access this portion of the site. The logic is that we do the stacking with automobiles along this zone. There's sort of a widened drop-off area, and again, we're bringing students and other people arriving into the building through this new secure vestibule, and again, that is an all-new portion of the building. A little bit later on, we'll see the renderings toward the tail end of the presentation, and we'll see what the southwest and the northwest corners of the building look like, because it will be a significant change from the building as we know it now. The building actually, as I said, was constructed in the 50s. It didn't change very much. It has had some minor changes to it, minor renovations over the years, and then in 1996, the current library, which sits right in the footprint of where the new administration and the new library will go, will have to be demolished. So there is a little bit of demolition associated with the improvements here also. Before we leave the site plan, one of the things that I also want to mention is that when you add on to a building, a school building, there's a ratio developed by the zoning codes for classrooms added, you must add parking spaces. Currently, we believe that the site is deficient of about 40 spaces to accommodate the new additions, and that's a ratio that we have to follow in the zoning code. So, as I said, while the vehicular circulation paths look pretty similar, we are adding up to 40 vehicular spaces. And then the last element, again, before we leave, is that this loop, which will be reconfigured primarily because of modifications that we have to make to the cafeteria. We will be expanding the cafeteria in order to accommodate the third grade level for lunch periods. But it also modifies our loop road that we have here. It changes a little bit, and that's still subject to change as the building additions evolve. I'm going to go next to the floor plan. And this is the first floor plan that Hickson, for those of you that don't know it, it has a ground level to where there are services that essentially come into the building in this zone, and the boiler and other support areas are below the kitchen in this area. And there are a few academic classrooms. There's a wood shop and the art room on the very lowest ground level. But almost all of the building is located on the first or the main level here. And again, we see now the academic and the library area being located right here, as we had previously talked about on the site plan. The area, it's kind of hard to see these. It might show up a little bit better on your screen, but the area in green here is the academic area. And essentially that component is moving out of, currently it resides right here, and it will move into the new space. Now, all of this cannot be constructed at one time, so we are currently working with Rob Stuber on a phasing plan. We believe that we will actually construct the new academic wing first, and then we'll take some of the renovated areas and some of the other building expanded areas in, those will occur in different phases. But going back to the administration and library area, the library will sit almost exactly where the existing library sits now, but it will be expanded by almost 3,000 feet. That library itself will be over 7,000 square feet, and that is based on, again, it's a ratio of the quantity of students that you have in the building. We follow MSIP standards on that and DESE standards on sizing a library. So it will really change the character of the building. Libraries are not anything like probably when most of us were in school. They're very active and interactive spaces, and there will be many different types of activities within that library itself. One of the most important things before I leave that area is that the library was really intentionally placed right back here because we have, and you will see when we begin to look at the building elevations, we have a library that has a little bit taller than a single-story ceiling in there. In other words, it has a much greater vertical height, and that allows us to do a lot of different things, presentations and things like that, but really probably one of the most nice and beneficial elements of having the library at this corner is that we can grab a lot of north light, natural light coming into the space That helps us reduce energy costs through lighting and such. So we think that the library, the new entry coming in, definitely will be a showcase and a much different feel than if you look at our current vestibule area. A little tight, a little forbidding in its height. In the 50s, buildings were intentionally being lowered. The floor heights were being lowered through economies of scale and such. And now we architects that have inherited these buildings and we're air conditioning them, and we have all of the technology running through them. Floor-to-floor heights of less than 12 feet are really cumbersome to work into. So one of the things that the new buildings will, or the new additions will have, is a greater floor-to-floor height, and there's a nice way to work that through. Hickson currently changes in elevation. The academics wing that's currently grades 7 and 8, running north and south, is on a different floor level than the main entry coming in. The building was constructed that way, we believe, for economy reasons. Maybe the site was a little bit offset, but it's something that as we work through our new academic wing, which is right here, we have an opportunity to fix that floor-to-floor height, and I'll explain that in a moment. But one of the other things, as we're talking about this new academic wing, it was really, as I said, we didn't have a lot of options to locate that because we just essentially were running out of space on the site. So it works really well there. And the other thing is that piece of construction, not only the academic wing, but the adjacent multi-purpose gymnasium, can be constructed with very little downtime in the existing building. And that is a real blessing when you're adding on to a school of this magnitude and of this level of an alteration, that can be constructed without any major problems affecting or impacting the educational activities within the school. The only thing that we are demolishing to make that connection is currently the single-story girls' locker room that's immediately west of the gymnasium. And we haven't worked through all of the details on what happens when that area is demolished, but again, it's one of those phasing elements that we will address. But the academic wing is set up to where it contains really 4 of everything. It contains I should say, let me back up. It's set up so that each grade level is subdivided into Grace, what's the term you use? It is a team? Okay. It is a team, and we have assumed that each grade level would be 325 students for a total occupancy of 975. Those numbers are important to us when we're planning because so many things are based on the capacities of students in there. So each team then, what I was saying about having the individuals, you'll see that there's a science room back to back with another science room, and they have a shared prep area. But the science room then is set up so that that team is clustered so that social studies, math, and what am I missing? Social studies, math, and language arts, or what do you? Okay. And so they are always clustered together as a team. So the basic floor plan of the new academic wing is identical from first to second floor. And how there's a real savings to have all of that stacked, because then all of the plumbing of the sciences as well as the toilet course that are dedicated for this wing, everything stacks. There's a lot of economy to that. But again, the beauty of how this might work is that the first floor, remember I said that this was about 3.5 feet lower than this wing. What's happening is we will align the floor of this academic wing with the major portion of the building, but should sometime someone in the future ever wish to connect the second floor we would propose maybe some sort of a bridge or a connecting link, but because that floor is actually higher, then we can get a greater floor-to-floor height. It really works well when you're dealing with especially science classrooms that have a lot of the drains and different things. The girls' locker room that we lost here would be replaced over here, and that would be a single-story structure. And then immediately to the south of that is a quite large gymnasium multipurpose room. And I believe you all might have had a little bit of conversation about that because we're right in the city of Webster here. We're right about ready to change building codes, and the adoption of the 2015 building code requires that that structure also double as a storm structure. They're referenced as a storm structure, but typically they're designed solely for tornadoes or very high wind speeds. So I think you all have talked about that in the past, and there was a clear decision to make that room larger. It is sized that it will accommodate the entire student body, all faculty, all administrators, and a limited amount of visitors who could be in the building should there ever be a storm occurrence. So everyone would find their way into that structure. That structure would be built of concrete. You really wouldn't be able to tell that it's concrete from the exterior. It'll all be brick and it'll match the rest of the building. But it will be designed to where the entire building could collapse and that structure would be remaining to stay. So it's a very significant piece of structure and a very significant add to this building. The last thing I'm going to talk about as far as new construction is the cafeteria must be expanded because, and Dr. Lee explained to us that we don't like to mix our grade levels, so the 6th grade would have lunch at one time, the 7th grade would have lunch at another, and the 8th at a third time. So the space must be sized to accommodate, again, that maximum number of 325 students at one time. And there would be 3 lunch sessions. So that needs to be expanded, and that's what causes a little bit of that exterior roadway change or modifications. One of the last areas that we're going to talk about as far as new construction is the music rooms. This particular diagram is showing to where music will be clustered now. It's currently kind of splintered throughout the building, but now it's clustered here. This is an existing, I believe you use it as a band room. It would become an orchestra room. This area in purple would become the new band room, and this would become the new choral room. So now music would all be clustered together. And that is based on the assumption that we're going to make some modifications. One of the areas of renovation for this building is the family and consumer science. There are actually 2 classrooms up here. The upper classroom absorbs where orchestra is right now, and that would be renovated into a 6-kitchen fax room. And then the fax room below would have all of the other services of fax. Last thing on this plan before I go on, the next one will go much faster, but the last area of renovation here identified will be a new nurses suite. It's expanded from what you currently have, and certainly with a total student body of almost 1,000 students, you need it much larger. Second floor, again, there's a little bit to talk about as we come into our major entry on the floor below. We're coming into a secure vestibule. It works very similar to the features that Mark was talking about on the elementaries, where you are coming into a secure vestibule and then authorized to come into the main office. The interesting thing here on the second floor, though, is as you're out into the lobby area, that is a 2-story space because this is a 2-story addition. The addition to the west is a 2-story addition. There will be 2 language classrooms up there, and most importantly, Hickson is finally getting a real passenger elevator, and that's where that will occur also. it's best to always to incorporate those into new construction rather than renovation. But again, we have a new elevator, and then at opposite ends of the corridors are all of the various stairs for the fire purposes and such. We do have to modify a little bit of a mechanical room on the second floor so that we now have a connecting second floor corridor, and we go right back into that 8th grade wing. And I should point out that in talking with Dr. Lee, she felt that it seemed to make most sense to make this the dedicated 8th grade wing, 6th graders on the first floor, and 7th graders on the second floor in the other academic house. So that's the plan in general terms. Again, I won't go over anything about the academic wing here because it's an exact duplication of the first floor. Let's look at I believe it's the southwest. This is the main entrance into Hickson now. That is the southwest corner. If you were heading north on Elm and you look over at the school, you can see just a little remnant of the existing current 7th and 8th grade wing over here. New entry coming in. This is the parent drop-off that I was discussing. The basic design of the building is trying to replicate the verticality of the original building with the repeating vertical brick columns. The intent would be to match the brick, although this looks a little bit more brown than Hickson is. The intent would be to match that brick so that as you look at it, you really can't tell where the new starts and the old stops. But this would be, again, looking at the main entrance, and then I'm going to shift you back to this is the northwest corner. Again, if we were still on Elm, now looking backward, back onto the high, this is the library area with the north light coming in. Kind of similar, if any of you have been over to the New County Library off of Grants Trail Library. Very similar with the tall story windows, a lot of natural light coming in. There are sun screens around the building. Again, it's a very active building from the standpoint of being sensitive to energy consumption and the like. The glass is a high reflective type, well, not highly reflective, but highly coated so that it reflects, the intrusion of sun and things like that. You'll see the current entrance right in this zone, and that's where the buses, and that's your current entry into the addition. So that is the bus drop-off. Now, I've talked a lot, and I'm almost out of breath here, so can I answer any questions for you if there's anything that anyone has? Yes, ma'am.
Are those windows in the library going to be secure? Like, what kind of glass?
Well, they're a double insulated glass, and yes, they would be secure. What we have been, and we haven't gone to this level of conversation yet, but at any entry point into a building, now most school districts are exploring the possibility of upgrading the glass itself, either with probably the most simple, straightforward is to use security film. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's an applied film to glass, or we can look at improvements in glass types so that it is more secure. While that glass looks like it goes almost down to the floor line, it does not. It has a sill height that's almost about 3 feet tall. So the glass really wouldn't start until a normal sill height and then go up. But it would be quite secure, I believe. But you have to use the right type of glass for it. Yes.
I think a lot of people in the community have been referring to it as a new 6th grade wing. And so I don't know if you or Dr. Lee want to talk about why it's an 8th grade wing.
Okay. Would you like to answer that?
I never referred to it as an 8th grade. It was always just the addition.
Sure.
It's on 2 separate floors. So when you think about creating a 6th grade house, you want kids to be in proximity to the adults as we transition them in. So it makes the most sense to keep them on the first floor, closest to where the grade level principal will be, as well as the nurse or counselor and other points of contact. The 8th grade wing is split. It's 2 tables on the top, 2 tables on the floor. So We think of, 6 elementary schools coming together in one building to navigate new space, transition-wise. It's a lot easier to transition them in with 4 teams in proximity on the same floor. So that's really the rationale.
That's a very typical design element. Almost every middle school I've ever done, I would venture to say every middle school, 6th graders are always closest to the main entry and the administrators. Anything else?
I just wanted to, for clarification, I don't know if this is it, but you had referenced just a couple times class sizes of 325, but our class sizes are larger than that. So I didn't know if you guys could, if anybody could speak to that. So we have class sizes of 325, but like we have a class right there now that's about 390. So I didn't know, I just knew that might be a talking point too, and
okay.
Anyway.
Well, it certainly could. I think we were using the information in the Cooperative Strategies Handbook that said that the total anticipated enrollment would be maxed out around 1,000 students. So we were using the typical class size of 325 so that we end up, but times 3, we're right at 975. That takes into account when you're designing a school for some absenteeism and such. And the old saying is that you typically don't design the church for Easter Sunday. And when we're working with a very, very tight budget like this, we try to hit kind of a norm, a middle of the road. So that's why we're scaled down a little bit. Okay. It has a substantial impact on certain areas because, believe it or not, we use that student count for instance, when we're sizing the cafeteria. Each student in the cafeteria, we allocate between 12 to 15 square feet for that student. Believe it or not, if you begin to add those students up, all of a sudden it expands an area like that. So that's one area that's really sensitive to square footage, as well as the Library Media Center is. And that's another one. Library Media Center, we take the entire enrollment of the school, and in general terms, we apply 8 square feet per student, and if you do that math, you get about the size of a library that we have shown here. There's been a little debate on, is that library a little too big? Because right now, they're coming from a library that's around 4,000 square feet. So this is almost, well, it's another 3,000 square feet more. And so that's why we've used those figures, because we felt we wanted to hit right in that kind of safety zone, not always designing for the maximum enrollment in the school.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Ms. Frazier.
Okay, so the tax rate, we went in through that in detail earlier. So right now, I'll just go over that the residential rate's being recommended at $4.11.49, commercial rate at $4.91.37, personal property rate at $5.90, plus then the debt service rate of $56.99. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? No, there's a very detailed motion before you, should someone choose to make it. Come on, Arnold, you know you want to.
All right. I move the 2019 tax rate ceiling be set at $4.3430 blended and individually by category at residential, $4.1118 plus 0.0031 recoupment rate for a total of $4.1149. Agriculture, 0. Commercial, $4.5743 plus 0.3394 recoupment rate for a total of $4.9137. Personal property, $5.9000. Second one. I move the 2019 operating levy be set at a blended rate of $4.3430 and the current year rate computed by category as follows. Residential, $4.1118 plus 0.0031 recoupment rate for a total of $4.1149. Agricultural, 0. Commercial, $4.5743 plus 0.3394 recoupment rate for a total of $4.9137. Personal property, $5.9000. Thirdly, I move that the 2019 operating levy be distributed as follows. Incidental fund, $2.4905, with the current year rate computed by category as follows. Residential, $2.2593, agricultural, 0, commercial, $2.7218, personal property, $4.0475, teachers fund, $1.7900, with the current year rate computed by category as follows. Residential, $1.7900, agricultural, 0, commercial, $1.7900, personal property, $1.7900, capital projects fund, 0.0625 plus the recoupment rate, with the current year rate computed by category as followed. Residential, 0.0625 plus 0.0031 recoupment for a total of 0.0656. Agricultural, 0, commercial, 0.0625 plus 0.3394 recoupment for a total of 0.4019. Personal property, 0.0625. I move that the 2019 debt service levy be set at 0.5699.
Phew, thank you. Second for all 4 of those motions. Is that you,
Yes,
Joe?
that's
Okay.
me.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Bond sale.
So Piper Jeffrey recently contacted the district letting us know that due to the low interest rate environment, the district has an opportunity to possibly move up the timeline for the issuance of the $9.5 million worth of bonds that still need to be issued for the property projects. So if you look right now, the 20-year general obligation bond buyer index, which was just 3.51 a few months ago, is now down to 2.97%. That's the second lowest amount since 1987, and that lowest amount was just a few years ago in 2016. Rates right now are running 20 to 30 basis points lower than on May 20th when you sold the bonds for the first $12.5 million. So rates are low enough right now that the bank qualified status is not as much of a factor as it was previously. We believe it makes sense to take advantage of the lower bond yields. The interest rate risk is higher if the district waits, but as you know, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know for sure what those rates will do in the next few months. So if the board would like to move forward with this accelerated timeline, we would bring a resolution with the parameters of the sale to the board on the October 14th meeting, and we would move forward with that timeline that you see in your packet. So I'm here to answer any questions and see what the thoughts of the board are.
Is it something we'll for sure be able to do, Pam? Has that been verified yet?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone not want them to bring this to us on October 14th?
Ever since I heard it announced on NPR.
All right, that sounds like a go then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, school calendar. I think, Dr. Wiley, you're up.
Just wanted to come before you real brief to give you an update on the school calendar. As you all know, the calendar committee meets annually to develop a calendar 2 years out. And so for the 2020 calendar, we actually approved that last school year. And so we have since the new bill, House Bill 604, that moved the calendar, moved this back. We cannot start school 14 days prior to the first Monday of September. So that moves us back to not being able to start school until August 24th. The calendar that you approved as a board had us starting school on August 13th. So we needed to go back, or we have to go back as a committee to redo that calendar. And so just wanted to give you guys an update and an opportunity to ask questions if you'd like. The calendar committee met once, and we took a look at a number of options and just tried to determine from our perspective what were some things we wanted to kind of consider, move around, and so we've had some good feedback. We're down to now 2 potential drafts. We will meet again next month in October. I believe it's October 15th. But we will meet again in order to determine and hopefully kind of finalize some things we'd like to bring back to you as a board to consider. One of the pieces is typically our calendar. First day of school is typically never on a Monday. August 24th is a Monday. We could move it back to starting later than that, but then that means that we would lose additional instructional days. So typically your first semester is shorter than your second semester. So we're also having conversations with the high school right now, implications for finals or kids that are taking AP classes, in addition to student teachers who potentially have to have so much time student teaching per semester. So those are some things that we're kind of thinking through, but I do feel like we're in a really good spot right now. We're trying to end hopefully prior to Memorial Day. Currently, our students' calendar we reported is 177 school days. Half of that, 1.5 of that is half day that we used to be able to count as a full day. Now, since the additional change to the calendar is that you are no longer necessarily having to report days, but hours and minutes. We cannot count those other 1.5 days, and so typically our students are in session 175.5, and so we're trying to devise a calendar. I think that'll be around 174 days, which is pretty much commensurate with the other districts. Other districts are calling me for my calendar, and I'm calling them for theirs, and so we're all kind of in this limbo place. I do have some drafts from some districts, but they're all in draft form right now, and so I don't really know what other districts are doing firmly. The one thing that all the districts did try to determine to do was to have spring break during the same week in March, so that for families or parents who work in one district but kids go to another, their spring breaks would all be the same week. And that is a recommendation I've taken to the committee, and there's not been any questions about that. And so our spring break would move to the last full week in March. That's been the only definitive. And then the committee is also recommending we go ahead and start on that Monday, just so that we're not losing additional days, instructional days for that first semester. And I will be talking with the high school to see how, if finals should remain in December, should finals move to January, just again because you have a shorter amount of time to get the instruction in before we're giving kids finals. But we've got to consider a couple of other factors as well. Are there any questions or comments about that? Yes, ma'am.
I'm assuming it will. Has it been discussed how it will affect the late start days for those? Will it affect the late start days?
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily. Again, we have to report a calendar that we're in session at minimum 1,044 hours. And so, but we report to DESE 1,080 hours because we have to report to them the additional 36 hours of inclement weather days. So as long as the high school is meeting that, they'll in essence be okay. I know there's been a lot of conversation right now. I think they've only had 2 or 3 late start days so far, just making sure that that is something that they want to continue and process through. So that's again another conversation with the high school to see, because that will be additional instructional time that's not there.
And people are talking about, along with the days and stuff, like Sandy said, about the hours and minutes. So that's a piece of it, just looking at the minutes at all the different schools. It's a hot topic at the past few superintendent meetings as well, because everyone's having to go back to redo them. So again, I think Sandy's doing a good job, and our folks are in a pretty good spot right now, but still more to discuss. Sorry, I saw your hand go up as soon as I started speaking.
I was just curious if you had heard, given that there's talk about it at various levels. Can there be a fix? Can there be a legislative, go back on this?
That's what it would take.
Yeah.
You can start earlier. Yeah.
What's that?
Not anytime soon.
I've actually heard rumors, and I don't know if you have, Amy, that there's potentially people talking about actually capping it, so that, because the purpose of it was to generate revenue, right? But what's happening is districts, because you can't start, they're having to push school back into June, which really defeats the purpose almost of the legislation. And so I've heard rumblings, I don't know if it's for certain, that they're trying to then put an end date, so you can't start before here and you can't go beyond here.
Less school. Less kids in the classroom.
Those kids need to work at Silver Dollar City.
So whether that'll be coming down the pike or not, but we've heard that, right? Because someone realized, hey, maybe we didn't,
Think this through?
maybe, I'm not sure. And back to the minutes, we have talked about that. Webster is the district that we have the shortest instructional day. We report to DESE an instructional day of 6.167 hours. We can't add lunch to that, so we have to take that out. And everyone else in large respect are reporting either a 6.4 or 6.5 hour school day. And so we have talked about that as a calendar committee and saying that, definitely increasing that, right, so that we can get more instructional time potentially, but that's definitely a conversation, as well as I know it's been mentioned before by the board of potentially looking at the start and end times of maybe the high school, all of the different levels. So maybe high school starts earlier and elementary school starts later. That's also kind of been a topic that's out there lingering for us to kind of kick around as well. But I'll have more for you from that after we meet in October.
So given that this is going to affect all of our families, does your committee plan, or perhaps after your committee makes its recommendation, do you plan to solicit input from parents, teachers, et cetera?
I've had that conversation with the committee on how we infuse parents into the process. I would much rather have like representatives from schools and bring them to the table. I think a survey and trying to get their feedback in written form about all of this with all of the different pieces would not provide the community with the service that they need to really understand it.
So you mean have parents involved at the committee level?
Yes.
Provide their input there. So do you currently have representatives from?
We do not. I solicited last year because I'm like, how are you making a calendar, right, without some parent feedback? And I didn't get a lot of feedback, so my hope is I'm sure with this change, there'll be more parents that'll be open to it. So my goal is once we kind of get to a place, maybe as a committee, then we will provide that opportunity for the parents to come on board and provide some feedback and kind of talk through that, as well as the start times and all of that. But I would much rather have a face-to-face and then maybe a push out, maybe in a survey or something else after that. But I think there's a lot of moving parts to this. Just to send it out in written form, I don't know that we'd be.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating for any particular method of communication, but I do think that, I don't think people necessarily, maybe they heard the news or saw the headlines at one point, but by the time this actually hits, they're not going to remember what it is, and it's a big change.
Yep.
So I would encourage you guys to get input from
Absolutely.
families and teachers.
Yeah, and especially if we're talking about start times, start and end times, high school starting, like those are some major pieces that I think we need to have some rationales behind if that's what we're recommending and getting their feedback.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And we will bring to you this year to approve the 2021 and the 21-22.
Sounds good. All right, at this time we have our second opportunity for public comments. We've lost most of our public, but is anyone who remains, would you like to make a public comment?
Dave Black. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I feel compelled that I have to. In the grand scheme of things, this is a really little issue, but it's a big issue for me. I don't want to change anything, but I hope the district learns something for the future. I was involved in a program here at the high school, great program, and I worked with a team of students, met with them several times face to face, and in between meetings I would write emails, ideas and thoughts about what they were working on. Everything was chugging along fine, and then to make a long story short, based on one email and one word in the email, I was dropped from the program. I obviously was really disappointed, but I know now that I made a really bad mistake in the one email and the one word I used. It wasn't a curse word, it wasn't threatening, it wasn't dangerous, it was a very common word, but it was the wrong choice of word. I made a bad choice. I told my wife, Barb, what had happened, and she simply looked at me and said, Dave, you are an idiot. I said, don't you know you can't do that? And I said, no, I didn't. Well, you know now, and I've learned my lesson. But I've been dropped from the program, and to be real honest, that really hurts a lot. The reason it hurts a lot is because I've been engaged in this district, just like other parents have, for many years through our kids and now my grandkids. I've lectured in classes. I've helped out at Fall Festival and Blacktop Ball and you know, try to be engaged as the parent and the grandparent. I'm not a stranger. I didn't abuse anybody. I didn't molest anybody. I didn't shoot anybody. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't talk down or talk mean to anybody, certainly any of the kids. But nonetheless, I was let go. It's interesting that Grace is here because, as I understand, the movement of the district is that we're kind of moving away from consequences being penalties, punishments, disciplines, like expulsion, like suspension, to what's called restorative justice, a positive, to learn from the experience and move on. I was not given that chance. And I asked Grace today, I said, does restorative justice only apply to kids? What about the adults? He said, no, it applies to adults as well. And all I'm saying is that the decision's been made. I abide by it. I'm living by it now. I'm staying away, and I've moved on. But I hope for the future that when adults like me make mistakes, and we're human and we're imperfect, that we make mistakes, and I made a mistake, help us learn from it, take the action of restorative justice, and restore us to the positions that we had. I think it was a big mistake. Because I wish I was there. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Rick. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items 8.02, 8.03, 8.04.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you all for coming.